What's going on, y'all? Welcome to Looking Ahead to Beto Days. I am Chris here with my awesome co-host Ryan, and I've been at a lot. Yeah, this week has been a lot.
It has. We had intended on doing a podcast and kind of planning out something later on, but after the last couple days, I think we both just said, you know what, we got to talk about this.
we can't wait till the end of the month, and everything's been escalating over the last few days, and anybody who didn't see this coming is a fucking idiot.
Oh god, it should have come from I mean, well, we'll talk about that. Like, you could have you can, but you still expected more and shouldn't. Like, it's still unbelievable. Even though you can see it coming, it's still unbelievable that this actually happened.
Absolutely, and that's what's taken us really a couple of days is to get something out. Is it's something you have to process. Mm-hmm. Like I was talking to my brother last night with one of my friends while we were playing video games, because that's what adults do in quarantine. We play video games. We're talking to him, and we're trying to explain to him, like, this is, like, a huge deal. Like, this is one of the biggest things that's ever happened in American history, period. It's happened one time before, in 1812, and during the War of 1812, when the British took it. And then it was taken by fucknuts from all over the country.
And to be fair, there was, because I immediately drew parallels to the Whiskey Rebellion, which was when, historically, this basically same thing happened. A mob rioted, disrupted Congress in Philadelphia, which is what prompted them to create Washington, D.C. This was one of the reasons why they decided they really needed a capital so that Congress can control its own thing and they aren't held to the rule of mobs, which was a very, very, very big concern for the founding fathers. Like, they did not want this.
Yeah, to riff on your Whiskey Rebellion, the Whiskey Rebellion is that was the first. It's really what like seals the Constitution, right? Yes. Shays' Rebellion killed the Articles of Confederation, and then the Constitution is written. The Whiskey Rebellion comes up, and what stops the Whiskey Rebellion is fucking George Washington. George Washington shows up, and they kind of shut down. Mm-hmm. We have the literal opposite of that. Like, Donald Trump couldn't shut down a middle school cafeteria, let alone a fucking rebellion. Right. So,
well, he's encouraging the rebellion in this case. I mean, this is the big difference, and why it's a problem is because our elected leader whipped up a mob to go riot and disrupt the legislative session. Like, this isn't, this is different. Well, why don't we just start? Let's go back before we get lost in the weeds here. Why don't we go back to January 5th? Okay, I want you to rewind your head back to January 5th, and what was your expectation that was going to happen? What did you think was going to happen?
January 5th, we're talking about the Senate election. The Senate election was this. It's been a fucking week, y'all.
Right.
January 5th was the Senate.
So the Senate election was going on. We knew that January 5th, the Senate election was going on. We knew Warmack was going to win. We were pretty good indication that Ossoff was on his way to victory. I know not every outlet has called it at that point, but there was it was ticking along, and we knew that the president was encouraging his supporters to come to Washington, D.C., to have a rally about the certification of the Electoral College vote. And that he was playing that, and between that and parliamentary procedures was hoping to delay and keep the process going, basically.
Yeah. Well, coming out of Friday, I feel like everybody was in a really good mood. Twitter was really, really positive. Which weirdly, you can get the pulse of everything from Twitter, because it's become such a to an extent. If you have to weed through things. You have to filter it, but you can get a pretty good beat on people's moods and feelings, and everybody was feeling good going into Wednesday morning. And there was this air of, well, 1 o'clock is coming. There's this rally.
Mm-hmm.
It could go bad. They could do something, but nobody really thought that would be what happened.
I think everybody was thinking like there might be some violence outside the Capitol. The pepper spraying and maybe some flashbangs and dispersing some crowds, or maybe burn or loot something. But
and then we remembered they were white protesters, not Black Lives Matter protesters, and they opened the fucking door.
Right. I mean,
that's what happened.
It was great. Well, so it's one of those things where is it so much they open? I mean, they were obviously horribly. The Capitol Police was horribly unprepared for this.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it was. So you spent time in D.C.
Yep, absolutely.
Right, and you've spent time around the Capitol.
Yeah.
And so you've been there, and you see like how much police presence is at the Capitol. It is insane. I mean, they evacuate the Capitol on a regular basis. It happens all the time. And it's like nothing for there to be SWAT cars parked all over the place, ready to respond. People out there with Mac 5s, submachine guns, ready to mow down a crowd if they have to. That's normal. It's there all the time. And the fact that they were absolutely zero prepared. I know that there were some videos of like them waving people by barriers. Some of that I'm questioning the timing of it, because it's like, well, if you're outnumbered and it's 5 against 5,000, maybe a tactical retreat is a smart play there.
I get that,
and especially if it's like
extent.
The perimeter was already been broken at another point.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, I'm really not doing anything because I could literally just walk around. So let's go retreat and try and reform a line at the steps. But so some of that stuff, like the people inside, I could understand like why the officers at Statuary Hall weren't necessarily arresting people, because you arrest somebody
selfies
there, you could escalate things with the hostile crowd.
Yeah, and it would have been or taking selfies with the crowd, like I mean, it even if that's just them like trying to be tactical, that's a dumb fucking way to be tactical.
Oh, I agree. I'm not. The selfie part is like, no,
absolutely not.
The non-escalation, de-escalation, standing back. I do see that there is, from a tactical standpoint, there's value, but at the same time, but that's not to say that the entire event was peaceful. I mean, a woman got shot for going through a barricade and trying to breach an Alamo position. I mean, what do you expect when VIPs are hunkered down and folks have guns? They're going to shoot you.
but that's part of the problem here too, is they felt compelled, and they felt they were privileged enough. There's a certain level of privilege to break into something and then try to climb through the window while somebody's pointing a gun at you and thinking, "Oh no, this person's not going to shoot me." I have empathy for the person who was lost in her family, right? That was such
for her family.
That's what I mean. I have empathy for her family, right? She knew what she was doing. Like, I don't want people, not to compare, her getting shot to me catching on fire, but I wouldn't want people to feel bad for me because I was the one who stepped in the fire. Like, that was fucking stupid. But there's a level of privilege and to that, and feeling that you are invincible, that the police can't do anything to you. They'll never do anything. They're on my side. They're on my side. So this goes. If this was a Black Lives Matter protest, they wouldn't have been
fucking tanks going down Constitution Avenue in a heartbeat. I don't understand. Like, they wouldn't have even got this point. Black Lives Matter has a rally, and they had the National Guard lined up along the Lincoln Memorial. Like, it was just to protect a like. You do that, but you don't protect the Capitol. It's just the abject lack of preparedness by the Capitol Police is what I am furious about, because the biggest thing that pisses me off about that is now every group is looking at that and saying, wow, that wasn't that hard.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Like, that's the problem here, is that like it really wasn't that hard. I mean, granted, it could have been a lot worse. Maybe only a couple. I mean, from videos I saw, only maybe a couple hundred actually made it inside. And the good news is,
couple hundred did damage to a building that was. It's an old building.
It's a big and it's a huge building. So a couple hundred spread across. You have to clear the whole building. This is a massive building.
Yeah.
Lots of offices, and now they got to go through. And I mean, can you just imagine how far away are the embassies there? Any embassy worth their salt would have rushed a guy over there and planted as many listening devices and fake cell phone chargers as they could find. I mean,
oh, absolutely. Anybody worth their salt. They stole Nancy Pelosi's computer. They broke things. They got blood on Zachary Taylor's, or not blood, but they painted on Zachary Taylor's statue. They were putting hats on statues. Like a level of disrespect to American history that I have ever seen.
How can you call
appalling.
yourself a patriot when you take down the American flag at the Capitol and replace it with the flag of an individual, a king? Like, this is exactly, you replaced the United States flag at the U.S. Capitol with the flag of a demigod and sit here and call yourself a patriot. You are not a patriot. You took the fucking flag off the Capitol, for crying out loud. That is just so disrespectful. I mean, I'm consistent when I say I believe that, you have a right to protest. You have a right to civil disobedience. I could even, think to myself, okay, after pushing through that initial set of barriers and they are outside on the steps, okay. Like, I could even maybe push myself that far. But to break in and, start causing looting and damage and,
to fucking
disrupting Congress at the same time, especially a Congress where they're doing parliamentary procedures that you wanted, and then to rip down the flag, like, no, you are not a patriot.
Yeah. You know who does shit like that? Fucking Nazis. Nazis are disrespectful to historical objects. They destroy everything in their path and roll up the flag of a demigod. That's exactly what that is. And that is, we've had a level of, they call people on the left snowflakes, but there's no more coddled group than the group that we saw attack the Capitol. But they just lost. You just need to, you need to give them time to mourn. We've been letting them mourn since 1865. That's what this is. This right here is us paying for our sins for not doing shit like we should have after the Civil War. Right?
Amen.
And that is exactly where I wanted to go with this next piece. We have never actually dealt with the consequences of slavery and the Civil War because we just did it under another name. So when Reconstruction happens, Lincoln dies, Andrew Johnson becomes president, and basically really nothing is done socially, right? A lot of the free, now there were some, let's be clear, there was some movement, right? Let's talk about South Carolina. South Carolina it has Robert Smalls and all of those guys. I don't want to take anything away from the historical importance of that. They go to Congress in South Carolina. South Carolina is a shithole as far as like some of the people, and I don't mean shithole in like the state and all that stuff. That was probably the wrong word to use, but like as far as the way some of the people will. Hey, if the president of the United States can call places shithole, so can I. God damn it. and that's not what I mean. I mean like the people, not I love South Carolina, to be honest. But like as far as like the people, right? There's progress and all that good shit. Well, everywhere else you have a lot of slaves that are now free, and you have masters who can say, "Hey, I'll pay you a penny to work on this land," and you get sharecropping, so you get a slavery under another name, right? They're now allowed to do that. Nobody stops anything. Nobody enacts any laws, and then we get Jim Crow laws, right? And Plessy versus Ferguson, and basically what you have is another version of slavery. It's basically slavery 2.0. After that, well, with that you get the allowance of the Confederate flag to be flown. They start putting up Confederate monuments, and you start building in the mindset that we can do this and it's okay. Like we can fly the flag of traitors, and we can call it like not culture, heritage. We can call it heritage, and that's cool, right? Like that's okay. Y'all are gonna let us do that, and they did, and we continue to let a pseudo Confederacy exist in this country. They were never punished. The Confederacy should have been shut down. Those Confederate monuments should have never been put up. The flag should have been burned at every turn, and anybody who tried to fly it or fight for the Confederacy should have been charged as a traitor. I say that. I'm doing my genealogy right now, and I found members of my family who were Confederate soldiers, and I have no empathy for anything that happened to them. Yeah, they were traitors. Fuck them.
There is no reason why we couldn't treat the Confederacy the same way Germany treats the Nazis.
Exactly. That's and it's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
They were never punished. It is why we have been fighting for equal rights for African Americans in this country since 1865. In the modern sense, this is post-slavery, non-abolitionist.
Yeah.
But we're dealing with the consequences. We never. It's like they got a slap on the wrist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got cancer and we only, got a little bit of radiation and never went back to the doctor. That's what happened. That's what's happening. These people feel so entitled to be able to do whatever the fuck they want that they think they can go into our Capitol, and that's why that woman was killed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they wrap themselves up in this weird idea that this is a that what they aren't doing isn't wrong. That overthrowing a democratic process isn't wrong. It's I mean, if you just go back to the fundamental issue that they have, which is this, they think the election is rigged and stolen. It's like, okay, well, if you truly believe that, we have plenty of constitutional avenues for you to contest that. We have lots of ways for you to contest that. This is not the place to contest it. By the time you get to the Electoral College, it's done. That they passed these laws specifically because it was a formality, specifically because the last time this was compromised, or last time this was contested seriously, was because states sent two electors to end Reconstruction, exactly what you're talking about right now. That what you're talking about was perpetuated because of a compromise, because they couldn't resolve a presidential election.
Exactly. The compromise of 1876.
Exactly.
It was, and that's what ended. It ends Reconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't send their electors, and they didn't certify their votes, and Congress had to figure something out. So all this bullshit you've been hearing from fucking Ted Cruz, who is a traitor, or Josh Hawley, who is a traitor, it's mind-blowing.
Using parliamentary procedures to try and hold a constitutional thing, a constitutional obligation hostage, is not what the founding fathers intended. And the stupid part is there was no scenario where they could have succeeded. Anyways, I mean, it would just take a couple of members of Congress to sue, and you could get the Supreme Court to overthrow it as constitutional. They have to perform this. The Constitution requires a duty. It's not like I know people talk about how, democracy is fragile, but the reality is we also have a lot of ways of, forcing through shit like this. Ted Cruz can go up and make himself a fool, but at the end of the day, it was a pointless ejection that was never going to actually be able to succeed.
Yeah, and they all knew that.
Oh, yeah.
Every one of them knew that. I don't know if Marjorie Taylor Greene did because, she's a crazy person, but these people know that. Ted Cruz went to Harvard. Josh Hawley went to Harvard.
Yeah.
And now they're pissed that they're having, their actions are meeting their consequences are meeting their actions.
Mm-hmm.
He's mad that that Joe Biden compared them to Nazis. Well, you don't fucking act like a Nazi. It's not that hard.
You stormed Parliament. Right? What the fuck do you want?
What are you expecting?
You compare burning a CVS in a city block to storming the halls of the Capitol. This is not equivalent.
No.
This
one
is
a
not
riot.
A First
one is
Amendment. This is not a First Amendment expression. This was an attempt to overthrow the democratic process.
Yeah, and it makes me worried for the inauguration. And I know Joe is going to take the train down, and all I can think is, how are they going to defend the train from Delaware to D.C.?
I'm not too worried about that. I think as far as the inauguration goes, they'll get out there. They'll have the National Guard on standby now. And I'm sorry,
I know they'll have it surrounded.
Those people are pussies. They can act all tough guy when they break through a window and have to deal with a few police who are treating them like kid gloves. Ain't going to be a tough guy when it comes to a real army with real guns. So that, like, you might see a few you might see incidences. I'm not like, you can't sit here and say there won't be violence, but I don't know that it will be near as bad. I don't think it'll get as out of hand as it did before. I hope not. You have to
exactly.
You have to assume that the DC police had their shit together.
And here's the other thing to that, right? That's in DC. Mm-hmm. What about the Capitol in Virginia or Georgia or California?
I mean, they've already done it in Michigan. What was it, Michigan?
They're trying to coordinate. They're trying to coordinate nationwide. Mm-hmm. So this is a bigger problem than just making sure the inauguration is locked down. And my concern in that aspect is Joe Biden's safety. If they can get him to where they're doing the inauguration, they could block that down for a couple miles, and nobody can get in or get out.
Yeah,
that's how it should be.
I mean, I think the person who ended up shooting that lady, and I don't think he was Secret Service, but he was basically he was plainclothes police officer who was assigned to personal security. So basically, for a congressman, that's effectively as a Secret Service. Like, they ain't gonna fuck around. They will kill people if you try and fuck with their charges. So I am pretty confident that at least Joe Biden will be safe and the delegations will be safe. And they'll probably lock down the area, like you said. Keep everybody. I mean, I kind of expect things to go as normal. I expected this to go as normal.
I know you did.
Where it was like, okay, there'll probably be some protests. There might be some violence and rioting. Maybe they'll overturn some cars, light some shit on fire. Maybe, I mean, it's not like the Capitol hasn't seen protests before. People get into there and sit down. They squat in offices. How many times has Nancy Pelosi's office had a bunch of protesters show up and start yelling? You can do that. It's actually you as an average citizen could get access to the Capitol, walk through, go knock on somebody's door and squat.
We used to be able to do that. I don't know if that still continues.
I think you can, or at least you can do it definitely in like the executive buildings where most of their offices are and stuff like that. So
it's I've been at a loss for words for days.
I know, it's crazy.
And it's just absolutely insane. And again, my worry goes back to these other states. We got to figure out something to do with those, because this was coordinated. And like, what if these groups like the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys decide that they're going to do something, and they've got actual guns, like. They're going to get their asses. Dude, it's not going to be good for them. I'm not saying that. They're going to get slaughtered.
There's not enough of them. That's just it. There's not enough of them, and they aren't nearly as badass as they think they are. So it's like they'll show up, Lark being the soldier, and any real resistance will just mow them down. They aren't that. Like, you'll have a few holdouts, but you can have a lone guy, but the way, I think the first thing you do is you start deplatforming them. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now is, I think social media companies are finally starting, like, this kind of sealed the deal when it's like, okay, they're coordinating this stuff on your platform. They're coordinating, so Twitter banned a whole bunch of accounts, including the President of the United States is finally off of Twitter. Can we take a second and if I wish we were a little bit better at this and play a hallelujah clip right now. And just take a second to believe they finally banned Trump off of Twitter. Can we just appreciate that for a second?
It's
hallelujah.
Oh, yeah, right.
Hallelujah.
It's been a long time coming, and like it was last night. This is Saturday morning. We're recording, and it was what I've called the Friday night social media massacre. Like, they took them all out, like that. I mean that in good terms, in every way that sounds.
Yeah. Rush Limbaugh, Alex Jones.
Alex Jones has been off, but Rush Limbaugh was big. That's a big one. I don't know I don't know. Haven't heard anything about Dipshit Jr. or the Crown Eater or Ivanka, who I just couldn't think of anything witty to say.
Yeah, I don't know. It's. I mean, that's the crazy part. Like, in the middle of this, they were posting about cheering on the rioters, saying, "Hey, the rioters are, they're patriots. They're doing this." And like, no, patriots don't tear down the flag of the U.S. Capitol. I'm sorry.
It's a game to them. They haven't had any real life experiences. Their dad's a fucking crook.
Exactly. It's not. That's. Now they have consequence. Now they're going to be dealing consequences. I think we're going to see some real questions like, can the president pardon himself? I mean, historically.
That's why Monday's important. That's because again, and not to interrupt you, I'm sorry. That's why Monday's important. They're going to impeach him again. Mm-hmm. Like, he's literally like, if you were going to make a resume for somebody who wasn't going to get a job anywhere doing anything, this is the resume you would want. Like, James Buchanan is somewhere off going, dancing, screaming, "It's not me anymore." They forgot. Like, it's the best day ever to be James Buchanan, because he was the shittiest president.
I know. It's like you're going down in the history books as the only president impeached twice.
Impeached twice. And you had 350,000 Americans die. Right, they tried to overthrow the government.
It's so strange because we talk so much about, like, especially these last 4 years, we've really been like, oh my, we're living in historical times, and these are unprecedented times. And I mean, last year there was certainly, like, we say that every year, and to a certain extent I roll my eyes, like, yeah, I know this is historical, but at the same time, like, in the grand scheme of history, you're not going to be learning about this in 60 years unless you're studying, like, early 2000 history. Yeah, the pandemic is a little bit bigger, but it's even with that one, is the Spanish flu necessarily a big lecture that's taught in all history books? Not necessarily. No. It could be done, but
especially in high schools and middle schools.
Riots at the Capitol,
people learn the basic history.
Invading the Capitol and getting impeached twice in the process. One for the second time for whipping up a mob to riot at the Capitol. I mean, let's see. The first impeachment for undue influence with an election by foreign powers and abuse of power to cover that up. And the second impeachment will be for whipping up a mob and sending it off to disrupt the Capitol. Like, those are major. Like, the first impeachment, you might be able to historically dismiss it like, oh, well, they were just playing partisan politics and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, it'd be the Teapot Dome of now.
Say equivalent to Bill Clinton's impeachment, right?
Yeah, something like that. Okay, that's a good example.
Yeah, so equivalent of Bill Clinton's impeachment, where it was like, okay, yes, this happened. He was an impeached president, but that was a lot of partisanship, and you could probably make that same case for the first one if you wanted to, if you were a historian looking back at this 40 years from now. But the second impeachment for whipping up a mob to go riot at the White House, at the Capitol, I mean, that's not one. Like, even if nothing comes of it, and I don't honestly know what's going to come of that. Like, I know the Congress is going to put it out.
It keeps him from using his pardon power. That's the big thing here, and even if it happens after, they can still impeach him once he's out. It's part of it is making sure he can never run for public office again. The other part is making sure it's to keep him from his pardon power. It's strategic. It's genius. It's not even relatively genius. It has to be done, and there's Republicans who are behind it.
I think what's going to end up happening
Murkowski's pissed.
What's his name? McConnell's pissed. I mean, let's be honest. McConnell,
McConnell brought this on himself.
He brought it down on himself.
Let's not mince words on that.
I'm not gonna.
All of them did.
I'm not gonna give McConnell a pass because McConnell. But I do believe that you should at least like as a Pavlovian thing, you should at least acknowledge good behavior. even if the dog is still rabid, you still want to at least acknowledge good behavior, and when they do correct. And I do think that he has a certain sense of, Donald Trump isn't America. Donald, like, I may agree with all of his policies politically, but like, I don't think he would stand for the sovereignty of the Senate getting undermined like that. And so I think that there is a significant risk that, he could get impeached and actually removed. It's kind of a fallback. Like, I think it's one of those things where it's like McConnell's like, I'm just going to keep the axe over your head. And if you fuck up one more time, it's coming down. And I'm going to do it this time, for real, because you sent a riot to my doorstep. So fuck you.
And almost got him killed. They were going to kill Mike Pence. I don't understand. Like, all these guys who have kissed his ass, and, like, Lindsey Graham had Trump supporters chasing him. And, like, they're finally reaping they're finally reaping what they sowed. And, you know, some of them... Mike Pence won't 25th Amendment him. Like, what's Mike? You were going to die, sir. They built a gallows out front. They would have drug you out there and hung you, sir. This is your actual safety. This is the safety of your family, because Mike Pence's wife and daughter were there. Like, come on, man. Like, at what point? Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, did you not think that, like, maybe not Josh Hawley because he was, you know, showing him the fist as he was going on, and holy shit, has he got no career?
Oh, I know. His book.
He's
calling
done.
a First Amendment. Apparently, he has a First Amendment right to a book deal.
Yeah,
that's
ridiculous. Not how that works.
No, you losing your book deal is not a violation of your First Amendment rights. Sit your ass down. Find another publisher who will publish your hate.
Or publish your own shit, right?
And let's make something also clear. Getting removed from Twitter or being banned from Twitter is not censorship. Censorship is when the government does it to you. Private companies have a right to do whatever the fuck they want on the... If Twitter wanted to ban Obama, Twitter has the fucking right. If Twitter wanted to ban Beto, Twitter has the fucking right to ban Beto, and it is not a First Amendment violation. I know.
No, it's not.
We complain about it when it happens to us, rightfully, and yes, I understand. You know, but no, it is not It is not a First Amendment thing for Twitter to take action, and let's not. And they have a responsibility to. I mean, they need to ensure that their platform is not being used to commit violence and organized violence.
Yes, absolutely, and that's what's happening, and it starts at the people who are in charge. And just to make a point back to Josh Hawley's book, if he really wants to print it, he can make it in his garage. I don't think Kevin Eastman or Peter Laird were throwing a fit that nobody was, you know, printing Ninja Turtles for them in the 80s when they were printing it out of their garage. So, like, get fucked, man. If you don't like it, you know, do it yourself, and we can talk about your Nazi propaganda later, because, you know, you are what you eat in this case. But here, in on this topic, we have another issue. Going forward, we have to deal with the people who were in charge that incited this. Ted Cruz the day before was saying, "You're going to be the Patriots of Bunker Hill. You're going to be the
motherfucker trying to back out of everything he said and acting like he didn't." Acting like I have seen so many people trying to say, well, Trump is the one who got them riled up. It wasn't Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz was just trying to do parliamentary procedures. And no, hold on, full stop. First off, there's plenty of videos showing him go out there showing that you need to go fight and be strong, and you know, don't let them take this away from you, and blah 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 blah, of ripping him up for days. He was part of the plan. The plan was three-pronged, and it's like saying the getaway driver from the bank should only get charged with speeding. Because the only thing he broke was, you know, doing 100. When in reality, no, the bank robbers fucking killed somebody, and you're trying to drive a political getaway car and distance yourself and say, well, I didn't actually pull the trigger. No, you helped pull that trigger. If Donald Trump was in complete isolation and didn't have somebody like you helping them whip it up, this would not be like it is. This is accumulation and echo. It's not like it's this ridiculous trying to distance themselves from the people who committed this.
We can't have
just
it.
Like no, you don't get to have it both ways, where you want them just mad enough to donate to you, but not mad enough to do this. And then suddenly, but I didn't know that they were actually going to invade the Capitol. At best, you turned a willful blind eye to what was going to happen. You willfully turned a blind eye, because you can't tell me you didn't know this was going to happen. You turned a willful blind eye, which is negligence at that point. It's like you're intentionally, I don't want to see it. Well, I'm going to pretend that the U.S. senator didn't know about Parler and all the shit that's going on there.
There's too many of them. Mo Brooks in the House. Matt Gaetz was saying that they used facial recognition, that it was Antifa. All of these motherfuckers need to be expelled from Congress. Seriously, all of them. There's no way forward with people who incited that. You cannot do that. You can't have them represent a company, a state like that, or people, right? They did it during after this, or right as the Civil War was starting. They can expel people. It is not. It is not, and I can guarantee you're going to get bipartisan support, because Republicans who didn't buy into this shit, that just wanted to do their fucking jobs, which I'm sure there's maybe one or two, right, and that are stuck in the middle.
I'm sure that there are some out there, and I'll even say, like, my other Senator Cornyn, who is like, yeah, he's a Republican shithead, that, horrible for the country, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He didn't participate in this bullshit. He knew it was bullshit and said, this is a step too far. I'm not going to be, trying to overturn the will of the election. Or in this case, threatening to overturn it in order to get a concession. It's like, no, this isn't something you threatened to do. This isn't something that should be negotiable.
No, it shouldn't be something that we're like, oh no, I didn't think that the tiger would.
The leopard ate my face.
I didn't know the tiger would attack his boots if I rubbed raw meat on it. To quote Tiger, reference Tiger King. We can rope that shit in still.
Oh my god!
I think where we're at is at the beginning of the pandemic there was the Tiger King. It's just everything's been a lot with everything going on. With this week we have. There's just so much history here. There's more work to be done. There's going to be there's going to be more questions than answers in the coming weeks. But this is the time that America needs to take and rebuild itself and make itself new again. We can fix the issues from Reconstruction. We've started. If social media can kick all those motherfuckers off as a country, we can move forward together. We can take those people, put them in the shadows, and when they fucking act up, we put them where they need to go.
Yes.
We take care of those. We don't just let them exist. We label them as terrorist organizations. We do not let them organize because it is dangerous, not because it's a First Amendment right, but because it's going to hurt people. Your rights end where someone else's rights begin. And that's kind of where I'm at. And I think as we move forward, we're going to we need to cope with that. And
absolutely, because you're right. This isn't going to go away. The people who support this, there's quite a few who considered yesterday a success, or the last couple of days a success. And there's a lot of people who, well, maybe they aren't thrilled with the optics of what happened, but don't necessarily have a problem with it. Those ideas, like you said, they need to. You're not going to get rid of them, but you need to at least prevent them from growing. And they need Absolutely. They belong in the shadows. They belong to They need to be deplatformed, which we are seeing. Parler just got banned from the App Store and Google Play Store. So take away. You take away their means of communication. It's not a First Amendment violation because they can still go out there and spew what nonsense they want, but it's a much different scenario when it's one nutbag in a small town spewing his nonsense on the street corner. But when you get a bunch of these nutbags from all the little towns bundled together, suddenly you got a problem. You can't let them spread like this. And, it's not a First Amendment violation to, for companies to deplatform. It's not a First Amendment violation for legislatures to say that social media companies need to be responsible for what they're allowing their users to post. If, you can post all the insane conspiracy theories you want, amongst your friends, go for it. But when it turns deadly and it turns to violence and it turns to overthrowing political will, no, you've crossed a line well beyond what free speech is supposed to be protecting. If your free speech also includes, destroying society, it doesn't count. And also people are gonna say, well, Black Lives Matter do that. Black Lives Matter
has been bullshit. I fucking hate that argument.
Black Lives Matter has been talking about the end of police brutality, not overthrowing the government.
And to go back to that, because the people who are protesting are I'm sorry, they weren't protesting. The people trying to overthrow the government, the people who are supposed to be law and order, back the blue, killed a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
Let that not get. Let's not forget that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right? But that wasn't
police
MAGA,
officer
that
was
was
killed.
Antifa.
Yeah, I don't even want to get into that. Fuck those people. I don't even want to spread that shit.
And I mean, it's like, that's the kind of idea. It's like, no, that needs to go back into the dustbin of, the shitter. I don't know. It's something. It needs to go somewhere. Anyways.
Yes. Anyways, that was our 45-minute long us dumping all of our feelings. I thank you for listening to that.
Thank you for listening
but
to that.
I think we have a little bit of news.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we have a lot of people who listen. We have a lot of people who've supported us, and you guys are fucking awesome.
Oh, yes.
We love you. But and we've made a lot of friends, and we love all of you so much for all of the support and listening to us and giving us interviews when we needed it. And so those of you that came on the show, John Dorsey came on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He did
all the friends of the pod,
climate change,
are amazing.
All the friends of the pod. DeMarcus Gilliard came on. He's awesome, and he's blowing up right now. Good for him. He no one deserves it more. Hannah, my wife, came on a bunch. Dan Golden, he came on. Like, people who helped us and made sure that we were viable. And this sounds like a goodbye last episode. It is and it isn't. This is the last episode of this as looking ahead to Beto Days.
Yes.
This is our last looking ahead to Beto Days episode. But we will be continue to use the same Twitter, and we're going to make something else. Me and Ryan have been talking about it. We want to keep going.
Yeah.
But the election's over. There's stuff that is this was built for the election.
This was built to support, not even just the election. This was built to support Beto O'Rourke specifically for his presidential run. So, we kind of... We have morphed over time, especially during like the El Paso shooting, we morphed a lot then we morphed again when he dropped out. We also realized we had all these great people in the Betosphere that, just awesome people that they like talking to, so why not record it? And having all the fun. I did a lot of traveling with, going to see people all over the place. That's a ton of fun. But I think it's time to close this chapter. We're just, the Beto, I'm still a Beto maniac. I still love what Beto did, but I think it's just, he's got the powered by people thing. We love everybody who's powered by people also. We want to support you guys also. But I don't know that we really want to focus the podcast really on that the same way we did on his presidential campaign. So we're just kind of, right now, I guess, just looking for how we're going to proceed. Like you said, we've talked a lot. We're still coming up with ideas. Maybe we'll just hop on periodically like this and just talk about whatever's going on. Maybe we'll talk about how horrible Wonder Woman 1984 was.
You're crazy. That movie was awesome.
I haven't seen it, but I just heard some bad reviews, so I knew I'd get a reaction out of you.
Pedro Pascal is a saint. So, that man deserves knighthood.
Right.
That's God.
So maybe we'll do more stuff like that. I'm pretty confident, give just both of our interests, that politics will continue to be a big part of this, and I want to make sure that we have some awesome people out there that, hey, I'd love to get you guys back on the show just to bullshit with us.
Absolutely.
So,
just because we said good, like, in a way, we thanked John and DeMarcus.
You'll see him back. You better come back.
we need you to come back. We want you to come, but we want to talk about other shit too. We'll talk about politics. We'll talk about what you're doing with your lives. Shit. We recorded an entire Star Wars episode of this, by the way, that I have never released. That I might release at some point in time, just for funsies. Now that all of this is over. But again, thank you, and this is. this is emotional.
For
For one last time,
one last time.
keep on getting out.
Well, okay, so hold on.
Keep on-
Hold on. I got a
Yeah.
question. So came up
Yeah.
with this is your last time. I don't think you've ever said. How did you come up with this last slogan? How did you come up with the slogan?
I made it up on the spot.
So it was just off the top of your head,
It came to me,
dude.
and I went with it, and I've used it ever since.
Podcast gold. I never asked you how. Like, I know you came up with all these slogans, and I was like, did you like sit there and think about it?
I don't like think about it. It just comes to me. Like I'm usually pretty witty with some stuff, and those were, I guess, moments of brilliance. I don't want to give myself too big a head because Ryan will hear about it for the next 2 months, because we do hang out. Like, we talk every day.
Pretty
Like, we talk
much.
about all this shit all the time, pretty much every day.
Maybe we'll do a
talk.
podcast about our Fortnite escapades or something.
Right?
I'm sure people would love to hear
And
that.
it wouldn't be an episode of Looking Ahead to Beto Days if there wasn't a crying toddler in the back, and I'm gonna send us. He's very upset.
All right.
We're gonna send it out on that. Want to guys? Thank you again. Keep on getting out. Keep on volunteering, and keep on looking ahead to Beto Days.